The inside of coats.
Parker gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.
in the rhythm and everything's clicking, everything's working like it should be. It's such a satisfying circuit, but it is also one of those tracks where if things aren't quite going to plan and you're sort of getting delayed and battling with someone's getting in the way, you're not able to hook up the ideal line through the corners, it can become very frustrating very quickly because it's all about momentum. These cars have a decent amount of power, especially with the hybrid, but they're not the most powerful cars in the world, and it's all about keeping that mid-corner speed up as high as you can. So certainly when we go racing, it is going to be important to try and find some clean air, try and avoid defending unless you absolutely have to, and certainly try and avoid making mistakes coming through some of these sweeping corners that lead on to the long straights. It's a challenging lap. It's also quite a long lap, as you said, about 2 minutes or so. So qualifying times, I'd expect them to be pretty close, but would not surprise me here, Richard, if one driver has put in maybe a bit more practice than the rest, if they can maybe take pole position by a slightly larger margin than we're used to.
Could very well do that. And then, again, all about how much time you can put in. And I'm just having a look down to see where our good friend Thomas Potter is. Doesn't look like he's here. So it either means that the bus driver wasn't quick enough getting him home from school, or he has got the homework as suggested on his social media. Oh, beg your pardon. Yes, he is. He's B3. So he is there. I need to clean my glasses to see that. Thomas Potter up into third place, ahead of Ollie Gibson. Craig Curtis, currently the fastest man on track from Andy Carroll. I nearly said Adam Carroll again. I really must get out the Adam Carroll habit.
I think I'm pretty sure I've called him that at some point in the past as well. It's easily done, isn't it? But yeah, Andy Carroll, apparently, according to Rich Hayden, pretty rapid in practice pre-event, so expecting him to go well. Another driver I'll have my eye on tonight, Richard, is Scott Bugner as well. You referenced him earlier on. He is 7th in points, but only carrying 5 kilos of ballast, which is a much lighter car than we're used to seeing Scott Bugner in. I don't believe he did a huge amount of practice before the opening rounds at Zolder. It was a bit of a last-minute decision to come back to racing with us here at the VRRC, but he's a multiple former race winner, and we know that when he's got practice time and he's got a light car, he is usually one to watch.
You know, the thing I can never remember with real-life MG racing is whether he was in MG Owners Club or Car Club, and I know neither group liked the other one particularly, so I'm not going to say which one it was. I think it might have been the Owners Club that were with us at Thruxton last year, and he was mighty quick, Scott Bugner, and you know, a winning driver in that as well. So one of these people that you or that I get a little bit envious of, you know, that are good at all disciplines. So he's 6th at the moment with Craig Curtis. Craig Curtis is hanging in there, isn't he? So early lap going in well, 1:59.2, around about, you know, consistent with what we saw from Joel Lask, 3rd in the championship with his hot lap. So Craig Curtis only got 3 kg on Ben Smith, championship leader, with 50. It's a big difference, isn't it?
It is, especially around a circuit like this with so much undulation, and it's a long lap as well, so you're going to be slower for a longer period of time as well. So yeah, carrying that ballast certainly not going to benefit him, you would imagine, in the races, but or in qualifying even for that matter. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that does perhaps mix up the running order, but that's the whole point. That's the point of success ballast. It's supposed to stop the same drivers running away with it one week after the next. So yeah, we've got a competitive enough grid here at the VRRC these days that if the top 4 or 5 drivers from one week are off the pace, the drivers that then are able to take advantage, it's never really a surprise to see them up there because we know they're talented drivers, the likes of, for example, Josh Martin. I'd see him moving up before too much longer. Craig Curtis likewise, although Martin gets it all wrong there heading through the uphill chicane, and that will definitely have cost him some time. 1.7 seconds off the pace at the moment is Josh.
Yeah, and you see, this is the me effect, isn't it, on Josh, down in 15th from 5th in the championship. So he really is not going to thank me at all for rocking up, and he'll be putting in a petition for Jacko to... Is Jack on holiday, by the way?
Probably. He normally is. To be fair, though, Richard, I wouldn't be too hard on yourself because these issues with Josh Martin, believe me when I say they can happen at any time, and they often do. So I wouldn't take all of the blame yourself.
Yeah, I must admit, Jack's not backward in coming forward with the insults for Josh either, is he, when we've been in the virtual comms box? with him as we get back with Scott.
Yes, I should say we're all friends really. Josh is a very good sport and
It's
takes
just
it very
joshing,
well.
isn't it? It's just joshing.
Exactly. But no, very talented driver. He's a former champion with us, Josh Martin, and then for whatever reason just seemed to have a couple of seasons where things weren't quite going so well, but showed good promise a week ago. So if he starts winning races again, that's the easiest way to keep us quiet, isn't it?
That's a very good answer, actually. Yeah. So there you go. The gauntlet is firmly down, and we'll see whether he gets the digger out to dig it up and pick it up. Scott Bugner second. Yeah, good shout there from Rich Hayden. So Thomas Potts has been relegated to fourth. Still a good, strong performance from Thomas in that early session. And he was up at Crofts because I didn't realise the family lived up there, but it was lovely to see him. Watch Andy Carroll trying to get a little bit further up the order. Giving him a chance, isn't he? Joel Lask.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, Joel Lask in the pits, 11th place, not setting lap times at the moment, so not sure what's going on there. He's only got 2.5 minutes left as well, so doesn't really have time to get out there and start a lap unless he gets a wriggle on. Andy Carroll, personal best in the first sector on this lap, so he is starting now to build a bit of a challenge. He's fractionally underneath his previous best lap, looking at the delta. Needs a really good final sector, and he could move up into second place. Needs to find, what, 10th and a half, basically, to knock Scott Bugner off the front row, but already a very different look to the front of the field, Richard, than we had a week ago.
Yeah, very much. This is going to be interesting couple of races for sure. One thing I didn't do was look at the point summaries to see if there's a mid-grid position to kind of play, because the race it's a totally reverse grid, isn't it, for race 2? So he is, yeah, Jack Smith. So let's see whether Jack can move himself further up the order from 8th position, and we're getting the outfield look at him. I'm glad we haven't got the new BTCC qualifying here, where, goodness me, it's complicated now, isn't it? It's free practice 2, split them into 2 groups, send them out, chop them down, send them out again, bring them back in, send them out again. Oh dear, oh dear. You have 20 minutes and done with it, thank you very much, you know, on a Saturday. I can see why they've done it, but wow, just a straight. You take over from Gal. There have been rumours about Gal moving on, but there always are.
So I'll just
Rich Hayden for Toka.
I'll unmute myself. I've been muted but you could hear me, but nobody else could. I'm unmuted now, though, so everybody can hear me. I was joking. I am not interested.
I don't know.
Nobody wants to openly challenge Gal, do they? Because it would probably mean that he'd send people after you.
Yeah. Jack Smith green again in first sector. Hopefully, he went up a place last lap. He went from 8th to 7th. Hopefully, he'll get another jump. But he's that weight is really affecting Ben, Joel, and Jack.
Yeah, well, I was just looking at that. Jack Smith 7th, Ben Smith is 9th, isn't he? And Joel Lask, as we mentioned, only 12th, but hasn't done a huge amount of lap time. So, yeah, they are all struggling a little bit, but actually not a huge amount of time between them. Smith is, what, 2/10 quicker than Smith? Jack Smith quicker than Ben Smith, that is. And then Joel Lask probably a further 4/10 back. So they are reasonably even, but a fair chunk off the top boys, aren't they? Craig Curtis looks like he's on course for pole position with a 59.2, and he is nearly half a second quicker than Scott Bugner. So, Richard, that's kind of the point I was making earlier on. Being such a long lap, you do sometimes find if one driver really clicks with the track, and it's a track of this length, their pole position margin can be a bit more substantial. Not that half a second is a long period of time, but when you look at how close the rest of the field are, that is pretty healthy.
Yeah, absolutely right. So
Jack pulled in the pits. He aborted.
Pit lane, didn't finish his lap. And I'm surprised actually that we're not seeing some changes in the times, because I've written the top 6 and normally, as you know, and I jot them down, I'd have to scribble them because someone will put in something very quick late doors, but very nearly there. Anybody else got greens? Andy Carroll had a green sector on his last one. He's finished, currently in third place. It's shaping up nicely, isn't it? I'm rubbing my hands together here, literally and metaphorically, for the upcoming race as we watch Dave Heasman 10th in the championship. Do you think it makes a difference because Dave is a Beamer pilot, isn't he? Does it make a difference that to him that he's in something similar to his real racing?
It depends how good the mod is, I suppose, and how good a job the mod developers did of making the car pretty lifelike. But from what I'm hearing, everyone's really enjoying the car, and certainly, that's normally a sign that it's pretty close to real life. So he'll certainly have an air of familiarity with it all, I suppose. I seem to remember him going a little bit quicker at Zolder than here, though. He's scraped into the top 10 in the points after the first couple of rounds, so maybe it's more a Mugello issue that he's not super comfortable with Mugello compared to Zolder, two completely different styles of racetrack, of course. So that would possibly explain that.
Should we go to the ads?
Okay, so qualifying complete. We'll take a quick break and we'll have some interviews with you in just a minute or so.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to the VRRC qualifying done with here at Mugello. We've got our top three drivers on the grid for race one joining us in the commentary box. I'm going to start with our third placed driver, Andy Carroll, who will be starting towards the pointy end. Andy, it looked as though maybe there was a further improvement to be had in the closing stages there. You've had a couple of personal best sectors, but it's such a long and technically demanding lap. It's difficult to hook it up over the full 2 minutes, isn't it?
Yeah, I was up a little bit. I think I would have got second, but came across another car right in the worst place. So I had to back out of that lap and settle for third. But very happy with that. Was never going to catch Craig. He's got some sort of Welsh dragon blowing out of his exhaust or something.
Well, you never know. Qualifying's one thing, but yeah, certainly half a second nearly he's got in hand over the rest of you. But if you can bag yourself a couple of podiums tonight, Andy, you'd be in a reasonably handy place in the championship, you'd have to say, especially with the likes of Ben, Jack and Joel maybe struggling now with that weight. This is a good opportunity to try and get some points back, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And if you want to give me a couple of podiums now, I'll just sign off and go. Happy to have. Yeah, I'd be really chuffed with one podium and then a good finish in race two. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll see.
How do you expect the races to go down then, Andy? Because it is one of those tracks where it's not that easy to overtake, actually. There's one very obvious place to try and overtake, but that hybrid is going to play a big part, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's going to be, obviously now we've got the rule of you can't use hybrid on the first lap. So I think that might make it slightly easier just to survive, first run into turn one. And then hopefully it'll just be a case of, settling in behind Scott and Craig and just trying to gap some of the other cars behind us. So we've got a bit of a smoother run, and then we can hopefully have a good battle and see where we'll finish. But fingers crossed that just I think surviving that opening lap, and then as you say, figuring out if there's a couple other places you could possibly kind of use hybrid strategically just to try and get a late braking move done. But on the whole, it's going to be up to where you deploy it on that straight. and whether see if you can kind of use the probably if you're running behind someone, deploy it early and then hopefully use the toe. I guess if you're in front, probably deploy it a bit later so that you have a bit more speed into turn one.
It's going to be interesting, definitely. Looking forward to seeing how it goes down then, Andy. Very best of luck for the first race, and who knows, we might be chatting to you again in 20 minutes.
Thank you.
So Andy Carroll starting third on the grid, and just to confuse us, Richard, a very similarly liveried car will be lining up just ahead of him.
Yeah, it's Scott Bugner. Scott, welcome. Well done. P2, front row start. Andy Carroll was sort of predicting that the non-hybrid use for lap one should alleviate any issues at turn one. That's probably the kiss of death, isn't it?
Yeah, it probably is. Yeah, it's a tight first corner, so there's a lot of cars that are going to be braking late, trying to make as many moves as they can. Because I know you don't win the race on lap one, but you can certainly make quite a few places if you're lucky. So I haven't got a lot to make up, but we know that Craig's been quick in qualifying. But hopefully, I've had a few months off racing with VRRC, but hopefully we can put him under some pressure and go for the win.
You sort of dovetail the real life racing with the sim world. Forgive me for not having seen the sort of MG results over this year. I think I might have seen your name out on track this year. Is that right?
You probably haven't, because I only done 3 laps in qualifying and the engine went bang at Brands Hatch. So no,
Oh,
you
right.
probably
Well, that's
haven't
obviously
seen a
where I
lot.
saw the name.
No, we done well last year. Done last year. We done a full race in the MG Owners Club and missed out on the championship by a few points. Got 6 race wins. So hopefully we can put them race wins and convert them over to sim racing tonight.
And do you sort of, do a parallel, or does it depend if you've got work to do on the car? Do you prepare your own real life car, or do you, is that sort of left to somebody else, or you oversee it?
No, it's just me and my dad. We work hard, we get on well. We have our tiffles. We all want to do different things on the setups and stuff. But as much as I don't like to admit it, he is normally right. So I have to bite the bullet sometimes. But yeah, like I said, we work well together, and we work late nights, midnight, 1 a.m, just to get the cars ready to get it to track. But I think that's what I enjoy. That's the fun of it. I'd rather do it myself, and then when we do well, it's us we can give a pat on the back.
That's a really good point. I know a lot of people who like to engineer their own cars, and will. It's almost there aren't any prizes, are there, very often for sort of self-engineered cars rather than big team ones. And what is it? Aspirationally, have you raced at any of the? So I'm guessing you might have done a Silverstone GP at some point. But have you raced at any of the other tracks, or been to any of the other tracks that Rich has put on the schedule for us here virtually?
Yeah, I mean, not in this season. I have done the GP circuit, but obviously I normally just do your normal Donington, Cabwell, Mallory, Silverstone Brands, Snetterton. But yeah, I mean, it's just nice for us because we don't have the biggest budget. We probably have the smallest budget on the grid. We turn up with a transit van and the trailer and 1 spare wheel and tyre and a few spares that we probably will never need. But we tend to do well. Without being big-headed, I don't know if it's the driving, luck, or a bit of both, and a bit of engineering between me and Dad and knowledge. But that's what we go for. It's a good family weekend away. We get a barbecue out on the Saturday night, enjoy ourselves, try and sleep well, and then do well in racing, come home, have a takeaway, and back to work Monday.
Yeah, it sounds pretty good to me. I think that's what a lot of us like to. Whereabouts are you based as well in the UK? Are you sort of near to any particular circuits? Or?
I'm Cambridgeshire, so I'm quite close to Snetterton. That's about 45 minutes about an hour from Silverstone, an hour and 10 minutes from Silverstone. I'm quite central, so I'm quite lucky. I mean, I've done Thruxton and Castle Combe last year. That was a fair trek, but they're probably 2 of my favourite tracks. Thruxton was really good. But yeah, the only track I haven't done in real life is Alton Park, which I think is probably one I am missing because it looks like a proper roller coaster.
Yeah, and would this sort of virtual series give you the hankering to go to the likes of Zolder if there's some sort of European meeting that you could maybe do, or a Spa 24 hours, something like that?
Oh, 100%. I'd definitely give it a go, but obviously, like everything in motor racing, it's all about the funding.
Yeah.
I don't have any sponsors, so we do it off of our own back. And it is hard, £500 an entry. It doesn't sound a lot when you look at touring cars and all that sort of stuff, but it's a lot of money. But like I said, we can only do what we can do, and we do really well with the equipment that we've got.
Nice one. Well, good luck for the race. I think we've better have a quick word with Craig before we run out of time, because I
Thank
do
you.
tend to waffle on. Good luck, Scott. Nice chatting, and hopefully catch up with you on the podium.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Craig Curtis, pole position for this first race here at Mugello, and by quite some margin as well. Was that pretty much the perfect lap, or was there more time on the table?
Yeah, happy with the first pole to start off. Yeah, I actually did a 59 dead a little earlier this afternoon, so I just wasn't able to replicate that, unfortunately. But I had enough in hand, I felt, to hold first on the grid. So yeah, really happy with it. It's but obviously a bit surprised. I've got the car bug guys behind me instead of the DK Power boys, but never discount Jack and Oliver. So yeah, it's going to be a nice run down into turn one, and hopefully I'm hoping for a boring race on my side. So, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I've just been in the groove with this track since I jumped on over the weekend, and just been sort of chipping away at the lap time, and hopefully I'll have a win. I'll be having a chat with you in about half an hour.
Excellent. Well, that sounds a bit like a plan to me, Craig. We've got less than a minute before the race starts, so we'll let you get off. But congratulations on the pole, and very best of luck for the race.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it.
So there you go. Top three. So Scott Bugner continuing to apply the pressure to Craig Curtis, and actually now starting to shrink the gap. He was really pushing on the previous lap. Noticed a moment where he got particularly sideways, actually through this part of the circuit, a lap ago through Borgo San Lorenzo, turn 5, and it's maybe starting to work. He's halved the gap nearly compared to what it was a lap and a half ago. And Richard, you can really see the way that number's.
What's even better for him is that Lee Pearcey is coming up to have a go here at Oliver Gibson as well. So let's see what Lee can do. Takes a slightly wider line in, and down behind them it's Andy Carroll. So those four keeping each other busy and perhaps keeping the pressure off Thomas Potter in third place here with 9 minutes to go. The bad thing, I guess, for Thomas is that with 3 or 4 cars behind him, and here we've got the change for fourth position. Pearcey up into fourth, goes on the inside run, still side by side at the moment with Oliver Gibson. How is this one going to play out? Again, the twists and turns don't really give you any clues about how this is going to play out, and they're still side by side. Tick off another lap, heading down towards turn 1 once again, and it's Gibson with his nose back in front from Pearcey. Is this going to allow Potter to get away? Gibson manages to grab the line here. Pearcey's going to try the outside, maybe get a bit more momentum. Nope, let's go for the cutback instead. Switches through on the inside. Doesn't work though. Has to just position himself in the wheel tracks of the number 15 car ahead of him. So Gibson fourth, Pearcey in fifth position. Andy Carroll still there in sixth place. Then down behind them, it's the 70. Oh, Andy Carroll now in sixth position. Let's have it. So it's Curtis, Bugner, Potter, Gibson, Pearcey and Carroll. With Smith next up. So Gibson, oh, he's clear again now. So he's got the time, perhaps, and the space, the breathing space to try and close in on Thomas Potter again. But every time he does it, he seems to get a challenge from behind. Pearcey, meanwhile, how clear is he? No, he's not really under any pressure from Andy Carroll at the moment. So things settling down, really. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth and seventh, all going through. Josh Martin seems to be overcoming his knee commentating problems. He's up into ninth place with his 17 kilograms of ballast, and the gap between Curtis and Bugner up front's gone out to just over a second again, depending on whether they're fiddly bits or straight bits.
Technical terms. Don't you be confusing me with these technical terms, Richard. You know, I've not had as long in the business as you have, that's for sure. I've not quite learnt all this yet. But yeah, fascinating battle. It's Lee Pearcey, very impressed with Lee, actually, in this race, because he's caught and passed Andy Carroll and then bridged what was a fairly significant gap, actually, to the Thomas Potter and Oliver Gibson battle. So he has got some really good pace mid-race, but just under 7 minutes to go. And so possibly time for another 4 more laps, actually. It's going to be still plenty of racing to be had here. The lead gap back up now over a second to about 1.2, 1.3 seconds. So the real battle is the one that's developing further back. And I would argue now that Gibson is actually dropping away from Thomas Potter and feeling more and more pressure from Lee Pearcey and Adam Carroll. See, I told you. Andy Carroll behind. Also, quick shout out to Jack Smith as well, continuing to do what we would expect from Jack, really. A perennial championship contender, and he is in 7th position, banking the points. He's not as quick as the cars ahead, but he's managed to gap the group of cars behind, in which is his early season championship rival, Ben Smith. And this is what Jack Smith does. You win on the weeks where you've got the pace to win, and when you haven't got the pace to win, you just score as many points as you possibly can. And Jack, staying out of trouble so far, is doing just that.
Yeah, that's exactly right, isn't it? And, you know, any true champion will do exactly the same. And I'd like £1 for every youngster I've met who has a midfield but half decent point score and leaves the track with his head on the floor. You know, I've had a rotten round and this, that, and that. But they are the bread and butter, you know, and very often weekends like that can be the difference between championship success or otherwise.
Ooh.
Oh, the sideways moment there.
That was Carroll.
That was Carroll, wasn't it? Yeah.
Oh, Andy, what have you done? Oh, and bouncing back onto the track as well. Now that's promoted Jack Smith into 6th place all of a sudden, and Ben Smith and Josh Martin gain a position too. So that could prove significant, couldn't it, in a few weeks' time? An extra couple of points gained there by the pair a pair of battling Smiths, but yeah, Andy Carroll, another driver, a bit like Joel Lask at the start of the race, to just lose the back of the car, sort of on corner exit, really. Now, these are rear-wheel drive cars. It is a long race, and this is a track that will use up those rear tyres quite a lot because there are lots of acceleration zones. You're often on the hybrid in those acceleration zones as well. So I wonder if now perhaps a couple of drivers are starting to run into some tyre wear issues.
That could well be the case. It's a good shout. And yeah, I love the fact you picked up on the similarity between that and Lask's move on the first lap. If you watch Lee Pearce, is he going to get closer to Oliver Gibson? I think Gibson's scoring decent points at the moment as well. Still hasn't been able to close down on Thomas Potter in third. Curtis and Bugner now the gap out to just a shade under 2 seconds. So Curtis looking relatively settled at the moment. Curtis Bugner and Potter. There is Lee Pearcey running well in 5th place. Again, not really being troubled.
Not especially. Yeah, this is 13th place, or it was 13th place, so that's where Joel Lask is. So I was wondering where Joel had got himself to after that spin. 13th, so sort of in no man's land, isn't he, though, Joel, now? Because he's not really scoring that many points, but equally, he's not that close to the front of the grid for race 2, because every place he gains, it gets him maybe a point or so more, but it puts him further away from the front of the grid for race 2. And actually, the closer to the middle of that grid you start, you would imagine, Richard, the closer to the danger zone you are. So it's turning into, in fact, he's just lost a place, perhaps all part of the plan maybe for Joel, as Christian goes back through. But yeah, Joel Lask, 14th place, not the kind of result he would have been hoping for.
No, it could all be an upturn championship-wise. We've got Brad Smith in 10th, Ben Smith in 7th, scoring well. So looking good for the championship leader there, for sure, as Oliver Gibson goes across the line. Again, good points potentially here in 4th. 2 minutes 46 on the clock. And I'm wondering how nervous some of these guys are at the front, thinking, yeah, Craig Curtis particularly, a win is within arm's reach now. Scott Bugner, decent points in P2. Thomas Potter, has he had a podium with you guys before at Virtual Reality Racing Club? He hasn't. Oh, wow. So Thomas Potter, and I know all the Flying Teapot fans are going to be going absolutely ballistic now, that he can hold on without having favouritism. It'd be great for the championship to have a new name on the podium. So Curtis Bugner and Potter, Gibson in 4th, still all to play for with 2 minutes. But have I spoken too soon? Because things are starting to close up, and Oliver Gibson is clawing away at that gap. You can see it's coming down, but Potter at the moment is holding his nerve, Andy.
Oh, you've tried a couple of times to put the mockers on him in this race, haven't you? And so far, he's standing his ground well. So 3rd place for Thomas. Let's see if he can hang on. Oliver Gibson, though, has really come on leaps and bounds as a racer over the last 12, 18 months or so with us here at the VRRC. So this is going to be a real challenge for Thomas, that is for sure. Piercy's challenge seems to have faded now, doesn't it, really, in 5th position? He's not so much a factor unless these two start going door handle to door handle, which could well happen. Whilst towards the front of the field, Scott Bugner there using another hybrid. He's actually now got fewer hybrid allocations left, significantly so, than Craig Curtis. 1 more use of hybrid available for Bugner, 4 for Curtis. So how the turns have tabled. In the first part of the race, Curtis was using all of the hybrids, and I worried whether maybe that would come back to bite him later on. But the exact opposite, it looks like, is going to be true in the closing stages. Also notice that Lee Pearcey's making a liar out of me. He's suddenly right back on the tail of Oliver Gibson again.
He is. Now, is this going to take a little bit of pressure on the teapot? Very possibly. 49 seconds to go. I'm totally lost where they are on the lap, and as to whether we're penultimate lap or final lap. So, okay, it's still all nerve-wracking stuff. But yeah, that really has turned, hasn't it? With Bugner having ended up using more. Potter under big pressure now. So this is a crucial scrap here for 3rd place with just the 25 seconds left on the clock now. And Gibson is shaping him up. Let's see whether Gibson is going to have a look around the outside. Is he going to deploy the hybrid to try and get past. He's all over the back of the third place man, trying to sneak a podium here, Andy.
Oh, this is getting close now. Potter has to have nerves of steel to keep Oliver Gibson behind him. So easy to make a mistake around such a challenging circuit as this one. But so far, Thomas not putting a foot wrong. He's keeping Gibson behind him. Oliver has got one more use of the hybrid than Thomas has, though. 2 for Gibson, 1 for Potter, and I think that could prove to be crucial. We've seen the power of that hybrid. Neither driver will know what the other has left, though. So Potter and Gibson, they can't really plan this out too much. You've just got to go with whatever your plan is and hope that it works. But we know that Gibson should have a bit of an advantage. He could, in theory, use the hybrid out of this next right-hander through Corintaio and out of the final corner. And Richard, it's an awfully long run towards that timing line, isn't it?
It is. That could be absolutely crucial here. This is fascinating stuff. And Piercy is closing in as well. So Piercy, he's got a couple of car lengths between himself now. But here is the move for third place. Thomas Potter is on the inside. And Oliver Gibson couldn't do it the first time, but the door's been left open here. They're side by side, and it looks like Gibson's going to have to run, Andy.
They're both on the hybrid. The checkered flag awaits, and Potter, I think, will hang on for the win, though. It's Craig Curtis who wins by over 2 seconds from Scott Buckner at the line, a 10th of a second in it, and Thomas Potter hangs on, and he judged that perfectly. He knew that he was under threat. Gibson, as I predicted, used the hybrid through the Biandettis to attack into the last corner, but supremely late on the brakes with Potter. And then, I don't know whether you noticed this, but he sort of pinched Oliver Gibson to the inside on corner exit, which meant that Gibson couldn't get the run off the corner. And then they were both on the hybrid, and it was pretty much even Stevens to the line. So really well driven that from Thomas Potter. Well defended, even though he was at a hybrid disadvantage, which I thought Craig Curtis would be in the closing stages, but it turned out not to be the case. And Craig Curtis it was who held on to the flag to claim the race victory, a win from pole position, but it wasn't quite as straightforward as he might have liked.
Cracking little race, wasn't it, to get us underway? And then we've got the joy later on in a few minutes' time of the full reverse grid race. But well done to Craig Curtis for taking that one. We, talking about taking things, are going to take a break, and we'll have a word with our 3 podium finishers, possibly have a chance to have a grid walk in just a few moments. Welcome back, everyone. And our first podium, Thomas Potter. How about that? How do you feel, mate?
Amazing.
Many congratulations. What a super driver. And talk to us, if you will, about that pressure you had, particularly in the closing stages. How did you feel?
I was like, every lap I was just trying my hardest not to make a mistake because, Oliver Gibson was like right on my bumper across the line as well.
Andy pointed out that in terms of the hybrid use, that Oliver had, I think, one more than you going on to the last lap. Obviously, no way you could have known that, but your lines and everything were absolutely perfect. And I was worried that we'd given you the big build-up and it might go pop, as it often does when a commentator tips someone to do well. But what does it feel like to soak that pressure up?
Well, right now it feels perfect because I've just got my first podium on an online race and I'm just super happy.
You know what? I think it's going to be the first of many first of many. So, you know, it all starts here with the sim racing, but then you go into the real world, and obviously you're doing a little bit of socialising in the real world as well. One of the things that you were talking to me about when we met up at the weekend was about your campaigning, and I think it's making a real difference. And are you getting good positive feedback from that out in the world?
Yeah, it's getting super positive feedback, and now obviously with all the names on my car, now I've just got a podium. It's gonna go well.
I said I was going to try and hook up with you and read out some of those names. I think that'll wait for another day, because now you've got a
Yeah.
podium, we'll
Yeah.
have the opportunity to do that again. But you know, to respect those people that you are honouring on your car, I think it's an amazing thing that you're doing. So well done. Thoughts on race 2, Thomas? Because obviously it's a reverse grid, lots more to do. Probably going to be a little bit more physical. The great thing about fastest off the front is you do your work in qualifying, and the reward is that you get a shout off the front. But lots more to do race 2. What's your strategy going to be, do you think?
I'm gonna take it easy on my first lap and just then on my second I'm just gonna try pick the times to overtake and hopefully get some good moves on the inside.
Brilliant stuff, Thomas. Well done. Congratulations on that podium. Very well done, mate.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, congratulations, Thomas. We'll see whether he can make it onto the podium again in race 2. One man who knows the challenges of finishing on the podium in 2 races in the same night is Scott Bugner. It's something you have managed before, Scott. We'll get on to your chances of doing that in race 2 in a moment. But for now, race 1, second place, solid start to the night. But you must be a little bit frustrated. You gave it a good go at beating Craig, but he just always had an answer, didn't he?
He did, yeah. No, he had a good, he had an answer every time, and unfortunately, at the minute, I'm not putting the racing drivers' excuse out, but I'm just using a folding table at the minute. So every time I'm turning, the table's turning with me and trying to tip over. So I'm trying to hold on to it. But good places, good positions, good points. I think Andy Carroll done well as well. I think I'm 5th or 6th. So good points for us as a team. And then roll on to the dreaded race 2.
So is there a plan for you to re-upgrade your sim setup in the future? And if so, is that likely to happen before the end of the season? Because if that is going to be the case, I think you'll have a few others worried if this is how quick you are on a fold-out table.
I have got a sim on its way, another rig. But I'm in the middle of moving house with my girlfriend. So we're moving in a couple of weeks. And then once it's here, I'll build it all up. So hopefully, maybe halfway through the season will be my turning point. So they can have the bragging rights at the minute, but I'll be aiming for Joel like I normally am at the second half of the season.
We're counting on it, Scott. We're counting on it. Thoughts for race 2 then? I mean, that table might start doing laps around the room, I think, given the arm twirling you're going to have to do to survive the dramas. We know how lively these races can get, don't we?
As long as I'm hanging on to the table, I don't mind. Yeah, I think I've done it before. When we were in the touring cars and in the Civic Cup as well. In the Sims, it's I was quite lucky. I'm going to touch the wooden table now. I was quite lucky, and I could get through the field unscathed most of the time. I think at Brands Hatch GP in the touring cars, I went from something like 18th to 4th in the first lap. So if I can do that again, I'll be laughing. But we know it's a difficult place to overtake here, and but you know me, I'll get my elbows out, and Joel's got a target on the back of his car.
Well, we're looking forward to this one. This should be interesting. Scott, congratulations. Welcome back to the podium, and we'll see if we get a chance to talk to you again later on this evening.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Is that Scott?
Yeah,
Butler?
well done. Yeah, nice one. Well done, Scott. Thank you very much, Andy. And congratulations to our winner, Craig Curtis. Well done. That all, well, I was going to say went to plan. You'd have obviously been happy to have led it from lights out to checker, but that gave us a little bit of extra entertainment and showed what you were made of in that race.
Yeah, really enjoyed the opening few laps with Scott. I made a reasonably good start. Didn't bog down that much, but then I saw it. Scott just sweep round the outside of turn 1. I just didn't want to sort of run wide and end both our races, so I hung back a little bit. But yeah, we had a good ding dong back and forth for a few laps, and I just thought, right, that's enough now. I need to get ahead a little bit and hopefully just stretch my legs a little bit. And he would just within a second, 1.5 seconds all the time. So yeah, I wasn't able to rest on my laurels, unfortunately. But yeah, we had a good race, but I'm just glad I managed to sneak ahead in the end, and yeah, just get a win, which is a nice feeling.
I was talking with Andy. We were commentating at Croft at the weekend, and we were talking about how I can't do this discipline, either sim racing or real racing, because I don't have the concentration to be able to do, perfect lap after perfect lap. But that's what it's all about for you there, and just the tiniest increment better over your nearest driver building up just mounts up, doesn't it, to enough of a gap at the end.
It does, yeah. I mean, I've even surprised myself, in all fairness, with the pace I've had at this track. I'm a bit worried what the ballast will be for next week, so this might be the last chat I'll have with you guys for a while. But yeah, it's yeah, like I said, after quali, I've had a good rhythm and flow on this track since I logged into it over the weekend, and yeah, I'm still, well, I'm not relatively new, but it's racing these guys. Since day one, and like I said before, I'm learning a lot from them, and also want to say big well done to Teapot as well for the podium. It's really well done.
That's good. Did I say fastest lap as well? I think you got fastest lap in that race to add to the pole as well. So well done on that.
I did see it. Yeah, I did see it. I think Scott was ahead of me by 1,000th, so I had to use my hybrid for one more lap. So yeah, I thought, I want to get that at least. So yeah, that's done.
I mean, I guess with hybrid, you can't sort of plan when or how many you're going to use until you know what situation you're in the race.
Yeah, especially lap one. Obviously, we weren't able to use hybrid, and obviously normally we use the the finger on the button as soon as the lights go out. But I think it's a good idea because we a lot of drivers have massive overspeed. I rarely use the hybrid during practice. So you kind of misjudge your braking points, and so. But luckily, as far as I know, there wasn't that much carnage. But race 2, we'll see what's in store. So I might hang back for the first lap, and then get the lay of the land and see where I need to push.
Yeah, Thomas was saying much the same thing, and the last thing any of us want is for all of the cars to be in a big bundle off the track. At turn 1, but once the adrenaline kicks in, is there the temptation to just go for it and make up a few places if there are gaps?
It is, yeah. I mean, from experience now alone, I've learned just to not be too impatient. It's a long 25-minute race. So yeah, before you know it, I think last week at Zolder, which I was really disappointed with my driving in that. But I think with about 3-4 laps left, I was down in P18. I think I came across the line P10 or P9 potentially. But yeah, it can all happen in the last lap. So you just got to be very patient and bide your time.
When you said you were disappointed with your driving, were there judicials or?
No, I just could not get on with the circuit, just the curbs and everything. So the setup was fine, but I just couldn't get, a feel of momentum going. So yeah, but obviously Mugello is night and day different. So I'm really happy with it.
Yeah, well, we're in Italy, aren't we, rather than Belgium? You can get overtaken to Jeremy Clarkson there, can't you? Going to Belgium,
definitely.
But we're in Italy now, the home of the passionate home racing. Excellent, Craig, brilliant. It's lovely talking to you. Congratulations on the pole win, fastest lap. And have a good one for race 2.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, mate. Well done. And Andy, car's already lined up, and I haven't even had a chance to look at the grid yet. But we've got Mark Stokes on pole.
We have then Paul Laramie, John Jones, and Walton in 4th, but it's all right because that order won't be the same in about 10 seconds' time because the red lights will be out and we'll be array and racing. It's the Labatt's-esque livery that lines up on pole position, car 08, and it gets a good launch from pole position as well. Mark Stokes will definitely lead them towards turn number 1, and with no use of the hybrid on this opening lap, remember, they should not be able to catch him. One on the grass further back, it's getting a bit messy, but it looks as though Stokes is going to hang on to the leader. Is he? Laramie very late on the brakes, gets to the inside and sort of spooks Stokes out wide, and they're still going to be side by side exiting the corner.
Please don't drink and drive. I'm guessing it's more acceptable to have a little lager or something before you go into a sim race. I'm not you, Thomas, by the way, at 12, if you're listening to this one. But yeah, lovely move by Laramie to get around the outside. And this is before we get to hybrid deployment. And apologies to Craig Curtis for signing off just before the start. Didn't give him very long to prep.
We also didn't move him out of the commentary box, so he's had a very distracting first half a lap, but I've moved him out now, and he can get on with the race in peace, and that was good timing, because already we've got drama, and it's one of the Smiths off the road.
Smith, isn't it? I think.
It is Brad Smith, yes, the orange number 69, and I think that was a bit of contact, Richard.
I think it was. So do we still have the is it the Monday evenings where Rich gets sort of stuck in, clerk of the course, and drags everyone along to find out what they've done wrong. Yeah, there'll be plenty of that to review. I don't envy Rich the work of going through all that. It must be a real labour of love, or just a labour. I think
it's
maybe.
an educational experience for them. I'm live. I am live, by the way.
I was going to say, I wonder who it's an educational experience for, them or you. I'm sure you hear a few excuses that perhaps you could apply next time you're on the sim. There's been a drama further back, by the way, he says, moving swiftly on, that involved Joel Lask and Thomas Potter. So they both just dropped right towards the back of the order again. And Andy Carroll, I fear, was involved. I also think that Ben Smith was caught up in that too. And Scott Bugner. They've all sort of found themselves in the bottom half dozen places. And Kenny Press and Brad Smith out of the race altogether. So it has been, as we predicted, Richard, a bit of a messy first lap.
Yeah, Craig Curtis up into 11th place. Olivia Krzyżanowska is immediately ahead of him. Olivia in the 899. If you're wondering why it's prefixed by an 8, I think Olivia is one of our Scottish contingent, if not the only Scots person in the race. And the 3-digit 8 prefix goes back to the days when short oval racing numbers, particularly in hot rod racing, were regionalised, and the 800 canon was for the Scots, 700 was West Country, 900 was Northern Ireland. Not that any of you need to know that, as my colleague David Addison would say, the audience don't need to know that, Richard.
On the contrary, I am fascinated. You should write a book, Richard. You really should. Yeah, that's interesting. I did not know that. And yeah, Olivia doing well inside the top 10. End of the first lap then. Who's made good progress? Oliver Gibson. Look at Oliver Gibson, 8th position from what, about 4th from the back he would have been on the grid. What about the others? Jack Smith is 11th, just outside the top 10. Bugner's the one who's struggled, isn't it? He's only 15th. After that first lap, but keep an eye on that black and purpley coloured number 15 car, Oliver Gibson, who I think is just behind this mess that's all kicked off. That was John Jones around, and Oliver Gibson, actually, just mentioning him, did a really good job to get through that without drama, although he has slowed, I think, because look who's just gone past him. Craig Curtis, race 1 winner, into 7th place.
Yeah, this is maybe, is it too early to talk about a Curtis podium? Very, very possibly, but he's really making the most of not having the ballast. You heard in the interview saying that he's really got to capitalise on that, and he was almost sort of waving goodbye to us, wasn't he, in terms of podium interviews when he gets the extra ballast on. But yeah, super job from him at the moment, up into 8th, as we watch Chris Blakey in the black and gold 27 livery. Mark Stokes still in 3rd.
Oh, sorry, Richard. I just noticed Curtis and Gibson were swapping places on the timing tower. So that's the battle, really, isn't it? They're the two quick guys coming through. They should have the pace to pass everybody in front of them. I think this could be the battle for the win. Forget the podium. I think Curtis and Gibson have both got a shot at the win here, and Gibson knows that he wants to try and get past Curtis as quickly as possible, and he might just have done it with use of the hybrid down the main straight. Curtis comes back at him, though, at the inside line, but this could be a really significant battle. A battle that, for the time being, is still going the way of our race 1 winner.
I love the virtual drone shot. It just reminds me, by the way, that we've got for the first time, as BSB did, we've got a white car off in the mix there. As BSB did last weekend, had drone footage for the first time. We've got that on ITV this weekend as well. Yeah. So we had blimp coverage before from the Goodyear blimp, but we've actually got drone footage as BSB did this weekend. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, it gives a completely different perspective on the track and on the use of racing lines as well, and the momentum through a corner that you carry by going in wide and cutting into a late apex. An early apex there, taken by Chris Blakey, taking advantage of him from Stokes, who makes another one now and ends up depositing himself in the gravel. Through will come Adam Lyall, through will come Craig Curtis, and through will come Oliver Gibson. So those two are both in the top half dozen now. Jack Smith is into the top 10 as well in 9th. So just keeping an eye on some of these expected front runners who are starting to move their way through, but I really do think this is a significant battle between Curtis and Gibson. Any opportunity that Oliver has got to find a way through could put him in the position of favourite to win the race. He's trying the outside line now as they go through the right-hander at Correntaya. That's a bit of a low percentage move. It wasn't that likely to work, but he's just trying to distract Craig, I think, because what we saw in race 1, Richard, was that if you leave Craig Curtis to his own devices, he's very difficult to keep up with.
Yeah, very much so. He's in the mix now, though, and getting stuck in here. About to have a little nibble away at Adam Lyall. Let's see whether he can get the job done. But Adam hanging on pretty well at the moment. Nice time to go for an onboard hit down the straight. Are we going to see a deployment here.
Yep.
Catching up. Here we go. Moves to the outside. Side by side. It's going to be the outside one when they come into the corner. Switch on boards. And the repass is going to happen here on the inside. Oh, he's off.
Craig, what were you doing? He didn't need to take that risk under braking, just a bit too late on the brakes and desperate to try and get past Lyall as quickly as he could. And look what it's done now. He's dropped right down the order. Where did he end up? Well, a sixth, I suppose, but 2.5 seconds behind those two.
It's Olivia out.
That's Olivia out. That's sad. That's not good to see. Olivia just off the circuit there, I think into retirement. So disappointment for her. 18th place at the moment.
So Oliver Gibson now takes up position as favourite to win, maybe. He's got 2.5 seconds over Craig Curtis, but still can't find a way past Adam Lyall, who's putting up a sterling defence so far, keeping both of these two at bay. And the longer Gibson spends behind him, the closer Curtis might get again. He's wide over the curb. Lyall then uses the hybrid look to try and get away from him. That's maybe not the best place to use that hybrid, although it will give him better acceleration out of the right-hander. I think it's only a matter of time before Gibson gets through. But look, even in just those 3 corners, Gibson drops half a second to Craig Curtis. He's up the inside. The door's going to close. They almost lean on each other slightly. There might have been a rub on the apex, but Adam Lyall just about keeping his nose ahead through into the left and right. He goes. He's still in front. And Craig Curtis has gained a full second on these two, Richard, in the last 5 or 6 corners.
Yeah, this is exactly why you don't want to squabble over it. They again, they're not going to work together, are they? But if they did, they would be able to get away, get in touch with Chris Blakey, who's running in 3rd place. Sam Walton, who I've not given a shout out to, having a good old run at the moment in 2nd position. Nowhere near close enough at the moment to challenge Paul Laramie, but 2nd place. None too shabby at the moment for the driver of the number 6, as we watch Craig Curtis continue to try and close down on these two. If he does close, passing is going to be another difficult thing to do, as we're seeing if Oliver Gibson's struggling to get past Lyall. Lyall doing a super job at the moment of defending, and as I say, this might become a triumvirate very shortly.
I've just heard from Olivia, guys. Her gear stick disconnected and blew her engine up.
Oh, no, okay. So I presume everybody heard that update then,
yeah,
Rich?
they did,
Yeah, okay, that's a shame. So Olivia out of the race then with, the closest thing to a mechanical failure you can get really in sim racing then, the hardware failing and causing an engine issue in sim. Oliver Gibson is... I don't think Adam Lyall will be on his Christmas card list this year, let's put it that way, because he is making this very difficult for Oliver. I meant it when I said that Oliver Gibson was the favourite to win this race once Curtis made that mistake, but one lap of good defensive driving from Adam Lyall has brought Curtis right back into this again, and it's giving both of these drivers actually less time now to try and chase after the leader. We still have 15.5 minutes to go, but Paul Laramie leads by 4.6 seconds over Walter second, who's 1.2 ahead of Blakey, who is 2.5 ahead of this battle, which now is starting to get a bit more intimate. There's contact with the right-hander at Correntaio, and on the inside line, Adam Lyall, can he close the door on corner exit? Yes, he can. So a real nuisance of himself is Adam Lyall, but making friends with Craig Curtis, because Curtis is almost back with them now.
The intimacy would have been better at Casanova. It was a few corners further on, wasn't it, here? Still side by side. And, no fault at all here for Gibson piling on the pressure, but Craig Curtis coming back into the equation, and Gibson will now feel the urgency as he comes out of that Buccini turn 15 onto the main straight here. He's got the inside run, and one would guess perhaps the power, unless we see Lyall deploy a little bit more as they come down into turn 1. The urgency for Gibson, is it going to pay off? He's on the inside run here now, and also up comes Craig Curtis into the mix. If the door's open, we can't quite get to the open door in time, but he is up with the battle. But finally, Gibson goes into 4th place, but Lyall is not finished yet, and you feel that he could just fight back. He's looking on the inside run here, switches to the outside, but it is a 3-way battle now as Gibson tries to start to move away as they go through Borgo San Lorenzo.
Yeah, Gibson had to use the hybrid though coming out of that third turn, and that meant that he's got one less to play with now. It did the job. It got him away from Adam Lyall, and it should now mean that he can escape up the road. But how defensive will Adam get against Craig Curtis now? Can Craig do what really Gibson wants? And we'll find out momentarily then as they head towards the right-hander. Curtis up the inside line, up the curb. But, well, Adam Lyall, in fairness, is being equally stubborn to both of them, isn't he? He didn't make it easy for Gibson, and he's showing no intention of waving Craig Curtis through either.
Yeah, he wants the points. There's no way he's going to give them up. You don't wave a white flag and roll over and have your tummy tickled, do you, in this racing for sure, in any racing for that much. There's a number of crashes coming up on the timing screen that I can see, which is affecting drivers. Thomas Potter, Stuart Henderson, I think Josh Martin's had a little bit of an issue as well. That's Stu Henderson. So he's had a issue as well. But all this, though, this battling has meant that Oliver Gibson is now, or has now effectively dished out the battling to Craig Curtis, who's with Adam Lyall. And this is giving Gibson a chance to maybe edge towards a podium. Do we still think he can win it? We've got 12 minutes 35 on the clock. He is 2 seconds down on Sam Walton. So it's Blakey now up to second, Laramie the leader. Podium is perhaps possible, maybe not the overall win.
Well, yeah, possibly not now, because Laramie we haven't seen him really since he took the lead earlier on, but he's just been getting his head down. There he is, Paul, streaking clear. He's 2 seconds further up the road now than he was when I mentioned him a lap and a half ago. So he is untouchable. He's got more hybrids left as well than basically everybody behind him too. So Paul Laramie judging this race perfectly and got to the front and cleared off. And that is really the best way to win these reversed grid races. If you can get to the front and pull a gap before the other quick boys come through, then the race win should be yours. So yeah, I think Laramie for the win is pretty settled, but I think Gibson and Curtis are still going to be podium contenders and could yet challenge Blakey for second place before the flag.
Glad you've done the big build-up on Paul Laramie because yeah. Let's hope things don't go pear-shaped, because he really has earned what he's done so far, albeit from P2 it's front row, but yeah, cracking start from him and putting in some very, very good laps.
So Rich Hayden in our ear, it's not that you can't hear this at home, everyone, taking all the credit for Paul Laramie's strong result. Here we are, waxing lyrical about what a good drive Paul's done, and trust Rich to try and claim all the credit for himself. But yes, Paul has been making use of the VRRC Sim Centre, which I have to say, having used those facilities once myself as well, didn't make me a better sim driver, but it was an awfully good fun day. So yes, if you do fancy honing your sim racing skills, do give Rich Hayden a call.
That's a really good point, actually. It doesn't have to be, the improvement thing doesn't matter. Racing is about, being social and enjoying it. And I'm sure everyone gets something out of it. So yeah, very, very definitely. That's given me an idea actually for the boy's birthday. So we'll do it. Anyway, we've got a battle going on here. So Lyall still working hard. And battling hard here with Craig Curtis. Lyall still there at the moment. Onwards.
Indeed so. So Paul Laramie then in the lead. Sorry, our pictures froze briefly there, but we're back up and running now. Paul Laramie still leading the way, and 6 seconds is that up in front of Chris Blake. He's backing off now. He can coast this one home, really, can't he, Paul Laramie? Although 9.5 minutes to go, so can't really afford to back off too much. And actually, that gap really has shot down all of a sudden by a good second and a half or so. So I don't know whether Paul made a mistake or this is just Chris Blakey using more hybrids. No, I don't think it's that either. So we'll monitor that with interest, as we will. This fight that's going on for third place, Walton under threat from Gibson, whilst in the background, Richard, Craig Curtis still has not found a way past Adam Lyall. Gibson, though, gives the hip and shoulder to Walton. It's not going to work. Walton will give it straight back, and that is a difficult part of the circuit at which to go wheel to wheel.
Timing screen reporting a crash, which was more of a little touch, isn't it? So the timing screen more over dramatic than me, which is unusual, isn't it? But for someone to be less dramatic than me, even a machine. But Gibson's having to work for every single pass that he's done there. I mean, this has been meticulous, but very hard work for him. He's on the outside run here. But look at this, the other two cars closing up again. So we were talking about a trilogy or a triptych of drivers, and now we've got 4 of them potentially involved. And Gibson looking at the outside run. Curtis gets his nose back in front again, but he's going to lose out. At the moment, Gibson's got his nose in front of Walton, but has got the inside line into the next corner, and I think has finally got that place complete.
Yeah, again, had to work for it, didn't he? But this has been a significant middle portion of the race for Oliver Gibson because he's made 2 very important and very difficult passes, and he's managed to do so more quickly than Craig Curtis. Curtis has got past Lyall, though. That could be significant. So if Craig can make short work of Walton and go after Gibson, then he might still have a chance of beating him. Blakey now, though, is 4.6 seconds ahead of Oliver Gibson. Remember when I first mentioned that, it was 1.2. So Oliver Gibson with a lot more work to do now if he's going to climb one step further up the podium. And it could be that if Curtis gets onto turns with him, then it will become a battle just to get onto the podium for the pair of them. Jack Smith, by the way, back into 7th place now. I think he finished top 6 in the end, didn't he, race 1? So more good points going the way of Jack Smith. There he is, Oliver Gibson's DK Power teammate. The slower of the two, most definitely this week, because of all of that extra ballast on board. But he will shed some of that ballast now going into the next round of the championship. And all things considered, Richard, I'd say this has not been a bad round. Of the heavier cars, those top 3 from Zolder, he has performed by far the best.
He has indeed. And Oliver Gibson, remember, 4th in the standings coming in, none too shabby as well, with 4th position in race 1. 3rd currently in this one is going to score well, and we get the points up relatively quickly, don't we, once they've crossed the line. So I don't have to worry too much about doing my sums, and probably a little bit early in the campaign to be worrying about that around 2 of 8. But that's my excuse for not doing the maths as the battle continues. Watson and Curtis getting stuck in now. So let's have a look and see how this one pans out. Craig Curtis to the outside. He'll spot Oliver Gibson just a little bit further down the road on his own in 3rd position. 4 seconds down on Chris Blakey. Paul Laramie still looking very good out front. And Sam Walton running very well there.
Yes, he is. Sam, 4th place, and just runs a bit wide as we said that, though. And here comes Curtis. Needed no second invitation, did he? Straight up the inside. And Craig Curtis about to jump up an extra spot. So Craig Curtis then goes 4th now. And that was a well-timed mistake, if you like, from Walton as far as Curtis is concerned, because he's only going to be 1.3, 1.4 seconds behind Oliver Gibson, who's already starting to eat into that advantage of Chris Blakey's as well. Here, meanwhile, is Scott Bugner. Had that little drama earlier on. He might have another one if he's not careful. That's Gillian that he's trying to find a way past. Gillian defends the inside line into the left, which puts him also on the inside line for the right, but then drifts wide on the exit. Bugner can't quite get the overlap, though, can he? So a good little battle going on further back here, but Gillian Christian, good to see him inside the top 10 solidly, whilst Walton and Adam Lyall now find themselves battling. And as they do so, Richard, Jack Smith is closing on the pair of them. So Jack Smith won't take too many risks here, but if he sees a chance to break into the top 5, if these two start battling in front of him, then he won't say no.
No, absolutely. Every point's a premium now, isn't it, for the likes of Jack Smith? And yeah, not too far away. 5 minutes to go, so still progress to be had. And the thing you've got to remember is that even with the extra ballast, he'll get more and more used to it as the race goes on. And there are another 2 places for him.
That was really bizarre. Walton looked like he outbraked himself, and I think Lyall was following his braking marker. And because Walton outbraked himself, Lyall outbraked himself as well, and they both just sort of chased each other off the track. That was a little bit bizarre, but Jack Smith won't mind. They were the 2 easiest overtakes he's made all day.
Yeah, extra points as well for him. So now a 5th position. to add into the mix. So we go back to Scott Bugner and Gillian Christian having a good dice. Bugner, none too shabby in this one as well, coming through from the back into 9th place. So having a good run, not close enough to make a move or anything at the moment. Back with Craig Curtis, 4th position. Is he going to be able to start thinking about a podium again now? Is he going to be able to close in? Curtis last lap was a 1:59.8, so not quicker than Gibson on the last lap. Need to keep our eyes on the times between those two. See if it is going to come down.
Yeah, he might not have been quicker on the last lap, but over the last lap, if that makes sense. Oh, makes a mistake there, though, through the first of the Arabiatas. That'll lose him. Look at the time, the delta going up. But yes, since this point a lap ago, he had gained 3/10. The problem is he just lost 3/10 by going in the gravel, or the grass anyway, between the two Arabiatas. So has it all to do again. But in clean air, on his own, Craig Curtis is quicker than Oliver Gibson. Of that, there is no doubt. The trouble is that if I'm reading that right, he has only one use of the hybrid left. Oliver Gibson has 3. So that could be the thing that keeps him off the podium. But they are both catching Chris Blakey. So who knows? We've got time for 2 more laps at the end of this one, Richard. So there's a lot can play out.
Yeah, there is loads that can go on. We'll see whether Gibson can close down the gap. But at the moment, things looking relatively settled. The guys and girl have had a very frenetic evening of racing so far, and it's been very, very entertaining here. Assen next week's round, so if you haven't seen these before, the drivers jump on. If you get onto the timing screens and look at the site, the drivers are on it pretty much straight away. As soon as one round's finished, they're busy training and swatting up for the next one, so that'll be what they're doing at the end of the race today. Have a look at laps in terms of fastest lap, best lap for the lead. Everybody in the one at the top end at the 1:59s, 1:59.38, 1:2.24. Chris Blakey, I think, has got the fastest lap at the moment in P2. So well done to Chris on that at the moment. Whether he hangs on to it is another matter as we rejoin race leader, who's kept the gap, hasn't he? Sort of six, I think was the biggest gap, 6 seconds, come down to around about 5 now, but it's comfortable, isn't it, for Paul Laramie on these last couple of tours?
Yeah, I think I saw about 6.8 maybe at one point, which is why I was a little concerned when it came down under 5 seconds for the first time, but it's stabilised there, hasn't it? So maybe he was just backing off a little bit. Sometimes drivers purposefully save hybrids for a bit of a fastest lap push at the end of the race. As the fuel burns down, the car gets lighter. If you look after the tyres and you save some hybrids, then you can sometimes go for a fastest lap push later on. Maybe that's what he was doing, because he's now started matching Chris Blakey's pace behind him. Blakey equally still 2.8 ahead of Gibson, so I actually don't think Gibson's going to catch him. And really, Curtis isn't catching Gibson anymore either, so it could be a far quieter final lap of the race than we had in our opening stanza earlier on. But we'll have to wait and see. As we've seen, it's easy to make a tiny mistake here. It's such a high-speed circuit. You only have to miss an apex by a fraction. Then you dip a wheel into the grass, you lose your momentum, and suddenly a big amount of time can be lost. So all of the drivers have to try and keep their concentration here into the closing stages, where you are physically and mentally worn out. People like to say, Richard, that sim racing isn't particularly physically demanding. Well, perhaps not quite as physically demanding as the real thing, but believe me, I speak from experience when I say you work up a real sweat when you're on the sim, especially with the weather being quite mild as it is now, and your head is pounding. You're making so many decisions all the time, just trying to keep the car on the straight and narrow. Even if you're Paul Laramie out on your own with no pressure, you're never given a moment to rest. And it's the easiest point of the evening at which to make a mistake, and it would be the most heartbreaking point at which to make a mistake and throw it all away.
I think for me, the position Paul Laramie's in would be the worst, because I've had this conversation with yourself and Jacko before. I much prefer, if I'm in a kart race or anything, being the guy doing the chasing rather than being out front, because I always feel like a target. I feel like the drivers are catching in. And as soon as you display that on track, they do start catching you. So for me, Paul Laramie's done a superb job here, not only of getting away, but staying out front. This is absolutely what you need to do on the reverse grid races, as you've said, Andy. And to my mind, he's done this absolutely brilliantly. Gap's coming down a bit. He can afford to just ease off a little bit now, make sure he brings the car home. So again, very well judged, very well timed run, I think, from Paul Laramie here.
It is indeed. Craig Curtis, by the way, just put in a purple first sector, but then the middle sector matched by Gibson. So the gap came down slightly, not really by enough. But yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I, in my sim racing experience, hate being the race leader. And the bigger my margin is, the worse it is, because your mind starts to wander. You start writing that victory speech before you've even seen the checkered flag. But Paul should be okay now. He's got one more corner to go. And as long as he makes no mistakes, it should be a first victory of the season for Paul.
Here he comes then out of the final turn, a little bit of a run uphill here, and the virtual checker will be awaiting him to win our reverse grid race here of event 2 of the season. There's the stripe, there is the win for Paul Laramie. Chris Blakey, not too far back. He's in second position. Great drive from him in P2 as well, with the likes of Oliver Gibson behind him, who completes the podium. Craig Curtis in 4th. In 5th position is Jack Smith from Sam Walton, who recovered well, takes 6th position, was very nearly on the podium earlier on. That's our hot half dozen complete. But good couple of races, Andy.
Yeah, fantastic. Mugello certainly delivered, didn't it? And the cars look great around here too. They look really nice to drive, very compliant. They sort of change direction really nicely. I must download the car and have a little go in it because it looks a great car to drive. And Paul Laramie clearly has mastered it, hasn't it? His real-world BMW experience coming into play, and he manages to get himself a victory, 3.8 seconds the margin. From a championship perspective, Jack Smith will be very happy, obviously, with either a pair of top 5s or certainly a pair of top 6s. I forget where he was in race 1 now, but a 5th place certainly in race 2, and comfortably outscoring those who were troubling him a week ago. So yeah, Jack Smith in a good position for the championship, and it's never too early to stop thinking about those championship points. Every race is worth the same amount of points after all, whether it's at the start of the season or at the end. We will unpack all of what happened in that race, that second race of the night, in just a few minutes time. A quick break, and then we'll hear from our podium finishers. Well, welcome back, everybody, to the VRRC. BMW Cup Race 2 at Mugello completed, and we can hear from our top 3 finishers then after that race. We have got, for some reason, Olivia Krasnowska's car on screen, but as much as she would have loved to have finished on the podium, she was a non-finisher, unfortunately, in that race. But it was a 3rd place finish in the end, and on the podium for Oliver Gibson. There we go, that's more like it. Oliver, congratulations, first podium of the night. It was nearly a double podium, wasn't it? But it was tricky to get past Thomas in race 1. At least you managed to make good on that, though, and made some really good progress in race number 2.
Oh, you didn't have to mention that. Oh. I never win drag races. I don't know what it is, but no, credit to Thomas. He held on, I mean, superbly there, to be fair. I don't know how much push to pass he had, but I was spamming that button as hard as I could. So yeah, no, credit to him. And yeah, race 2, not too bad. Happy with it. I thought I could win, to be honest, after the few incidents in front of me, and I was like, oh, bit of clean air, few cars to pass, jobs are good in, but everyone seemed to be the Sergio Perez of tonight. So yeah, I couldn't pass him, but I'm happy with 3rd. It's a lot better than I thought I was going to get. I was hoping for a top 10 at least, so a 3rd is very welcome.
Yeah, not bad at all. And like you say, back that up with the 4th place in race 1, where incidentally you did have one more hybrid available than Thomas on that lap, but he defended quite well, didn't he? And managed to keep you behind. But Anyway, not to make you feel even worse about missing out on the podium, you made up for it in race 2. It's good points on the board. It's been a solid start to the season, really, this, hasn't it? And of course, with Jack being heavier tonight, you've outscored him slightly too. Is it going to be one of those seasons, do you think, where it's a little bit sort of, one group of drivers will do well one week and then the next week it could be a completely different set? That ballast really seems to affect these cars quite a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, I know me and Jack were struggling for this round, especially Jack, because obviously, like you said, the weight is quite substantial in these cars. Actually, a lot more than I thought it was going to be. So it's really going to be sort of on and off, I think, for me and Jack every round. So he's got to be lucky and see if he can be on the right ballast at the right time. But yeah, also, in the racing as well, the race 2, I mean, that all came down really to incidents and me being a bit lucky and all of that. So yeah, I'm just hoping I can keep up the pace and be there at the end, because I haven't got a top 3 in these championships yet, and I've been doing it for over a year, so it's got to come one day.
Wow, is that right? You've not had a top 3? I just sort of assumed you would have done, because you've been competitive the whole time, haven't you? But you are right. A little bit of bad luck sometimes has sometimes been your undoing. So really, the way I see it, you're due a bit of good luck now. So if you had a bit of good fortune on your way in that race, then perhaps that's the universe sort of paying you back. Because yeah, I'm surprised you've not had a top 3. This is a car though that you would imagine would suit your driving style. So have you come into this season quite confident that now could be the time?
Yeah, I mean, it's rear-wheel drive. It's exactly what I like. If anyone knows me, I hate front-wheel drive. So I saw BMW rear-wheel drive. I'm in. Yeah, I think there's probably one of the best shots I've got. Really, it's a car that I seem to be getting along quite well with, and I sort of understand. I think it sort of suits my driving style. I won't give away what that is for rivals, but yeah. So I'm just hoping I can keep up that look and keep up those good results, and we'll see where we are towards the end.
Excellent. Well, certainly so far so good for you, Oliver. Good to have you back on the podium. Always nice to have a chat. And yeah, we'll catch up with you again next week.
Thank you.
Well done. Yeah, well done, Oliver. Joint 4th, I think, in the standings now with Joel Lask, so all to play for. But on to 2nd position, started on the 2nd row of the grid. Chris Blakey, well done, Chris. Good to see you on the podium.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, it was pleased I managed to keep it there. I thought Oliver was catching it at one point, but then I think I popped in fastest first half. The first couple of laps were a bit chaotic and a couple of incidents which probably get reviewed, but yeah, pleased. I couldn't quite catch Paul, but I thought I'd best let him win since he's looking after my pedals at the minute. He's picked up from Rich, so otherwise I'll end up on eBay. So yeah,
That's great. Is it difficult because there was a I think probably midpoint in the race it was evident there was a little bit of a gap. You'd gapped the people that were scrapping over third once you got into 2nd place, and there was Paul had built a little bit of a lead as well from his front row start. Is it more difficult being on your own, or is it easier having a battle and something sort of immediate to focus on?
I could see him. That was the main thing. I could just about see him. So I was like, right, that's enough to kind of keep me focused, keep me kind of trying to get close. And I started reeling in a little bit, but yeah, just not enough.
I think sort of the status quo maintained championship-wise. If I've done my homework properly, coming in, you're 11th in the championship.
Had a shocker in the first race. So
right, and I think you've maintained 11th, and Paul, as he was in that race, just ahead of you, just by 2 points now, in 10th position. So not too bad. Good solid start. As we head to what are your thoughts on Assen for next time out?
I've never driven Assen, so it's one of those things that you don't really see too much on the watch plenty of the bikes going around there, but you don't see too many kind of cars going around there. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. Looking forward to giving it a try. So I like going to new tracks, so we'll see.
That's good. And is it, as I was saying in the commentary, that how quickly do you get into practicing for it? Is it straight away? Is it tomorrow night? Do you give yourself a bit of time off?
As soon as the track downloads. I thought I had the track download. I was going to give it a couple of laps tonight just to kind of get my eye in, but no, I'll probably be on it this weekend. If I've got a fair bit of work to do on the real race car ready for the next race. So in whenever I get time, I'll jump on over the weekend. So
Okay, so when are you out next on the track, for real?
we're at Alton on the first weekend of June, whenever it was. We were.
Oh right, so not too bad.
Yeah, we were at Thuxton last weekend, so it's a recovering and service and maintenance from that. So
That's good. Was that good for you?
yeah, double race win. So
congratulations again. You don't get a chance to go through them all, but
I was hell of a weekend. Thruxton is a hell of a track in the rail, so didn't have to worry about track limits, Rich. So you'd be happy about that. So.
Yeah, Thruxton and track limits. That's always a thing, isn't it? It looked like there was a good crowd. I saw some posts from some other people that I know that work on 750. It looked like there was quite a few spectators in watching as well, enjoying the
To
racing.
be fair, I was quite impressed. There's a lot of people milling around. There's a lot of spectators up on the banks and that. But yeah, it was real good. Such a fast track, fast as the car's ever been. It's great. So.
Oh, brilliant! Well done on that, and congratulations on a great drive to the podium in race 2 tonight, Chris.
Thank you, guys.
Nice one, mate.
Cheers.
Excellent. Yeah, congratulations, Chris, not only on the result tonight, but over the weekend too, and not the last time we'll see him on the podium, I am sure. Now then, Paul Laramie, race winner here at Mugello. That sounds good, doesn't it, Paul? And actually, once you got the lead, it looked pretty easy. Were you sort of aware of how significant it was to get to the front as soon as possible there?
Yeah, I mean, it's great to be at the front, great to get to the end to the win. I was managing hybrid use. I'd seen from the timing screens I had a good gap. So once we got past the second or third lap, I thought, well, I'll do 2 or 3 laps with kind of double hybrid use to try and get to the low 59s, knowing I might be able to create a further gap. Then backed off using hybrid for a few more laps, which I know we can catch a little bit. But just left me enough at the end that if he did get close enough, I could have kept enough to do kind of 3 more double kind of hybrid laps at the end. So I was kind of managing the pace through, so I could see it on the timing screen. I could see where people were, so it was just managing it through, really.
That's interesting then. So you were doing what I was doing then and really watching that gap because it did grow and then it shrunk and then it sort of stabilized again towards the end. But because you don't know what everybody else is doing with regards to hybrid use, it gives you that extra thing to think about. Myself and Richard were talking actually about, what goes through your mind when you're leading a race and you're getting into the closing stages. And I said, you never get a moment's rest because there's so much to think about, and throw in that hybrid strategy as well. It can give you a bit of a headache, can't it?
It can. When I had to assume Chris had used a few of his to catch up a little bit. And being in the front, because I had that gap, I could I could choose not to use them at that point, knowing that I could sacrifice some of the space. I mean, I wasn't sure how long the total gap was, but I could see where he was in the mirrors relative, so I could kind of judge how far back he was. So it made it more comfortable because I could manage the gap through the race.
And that you did, and looked after the tyres as well, obviously pretty well. So how tricky is it with tyres with these cars? Because they're rear-wheel drive, so the tyre wear should be pretty well balanced across the front to the back, but you've got that hybrid, you're using it in the traction zones out of the tight corners. We saw a few drivers further back that seem to be struggling in the closing stages. Do you have to be mindful of tyres around a track like Mugello, or actually are there other tracks on the calendar where you think that might be a bigger factor?
I think there's other tracks that are a bigger factor. It was still a factor. The front left definitely got hot and was wearing out faster than the others. But I must say, when I got to the end, the tyres were still all in the green, essentially on the tyre app. They weren't completely scrubbed out. Whereas other tracks, I think Zolder last week, we were getting down into the kind of yellows and reds on the tyres. So it's not as painful on tyres here.
Well, we now head to Assen, which, like you said, is a very different kind of track. Still quite high speed, but a lot tighter, a lot narrower. Should provide a different kind of racing, would you expect?
I expect so. I think, I'm not sure I've ever raced there in all the years I've been doing this at VRRC.
Yeah.
Rich probably can tell me otherwise, but I don't think I've ever raced there in 4 years. So it'll be a new one on me as well. So try and get a couple of laps in a minute just to make sure it's all working, and then get some practice over the weekend, I think.
Excellent. Well, that's probably not a bad idea, Paul. Practice makes perfect, but you've done pretty well tonight at Mugello with a brilliant result in race 2. Congratulations on the race victory, and hopefully we'll get a few more chances to chat over the rest of the season.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, all. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul. So Paul Laramie completes our podium finishes, but Richard, one more driver to have a chat with, and that's our driver of the round.
It is. Congratulations to Craig Grosjean Curtis. Driver of the day.
Thank you, Rich. Yeah, really. Well, I wasn't expecting to be brought in the chat. To be fair, I actually forgot there was a driver of the round nomination. So it's been a good evening. Been a good evening. I think the best I've had since being with VRRC. So yeah, it's really good, boosting confidence, and just hope I can replicate it now in the next rounds, and get the practice in like I have with Mugello, and just maintain the consistency.
When you've got new circuits that you haven't done before, it's sort of extra homework, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, I've ridden Assen on, the motorbike games and stuff like that, so I know the layout roughly, but in these cars, it's going to be a completely new thing to all of us, I think. So, practice is key for next week. And again, just aiming for consistency. I honestly didn't expect to be as quick as I was this week. It was a shock. Obviously, the ballast helps as well, but we'll see what it is for next week. And but hopefully, manage to, with race 2, I managed to stay out of trouble for the first lap or two, and it was all happening around, and for some reason I just found myself in the top 10 by about lap 2, so I was like, oh, this is a good start. And I think I went a bit deep in the first corner when I was battling with Adam and Oliver, so I lost a couple of places there, but managed to bounce it back. I just couldn't get in touch with Oliver at the end, so I used all my hybrids by then. So but yeah, it really enjoyable evening.
Excellent. Well, it's enjoyable for us as well. Congratulations, and we look forward to catching up with you soon, Craig.
Thanks, Rich. Have a good evening all.
Thank you. So, Andy, I think next on the script is a look forward, which we've done a little bit already, to our next event.
Indeed so, where we head from one sort